I'm very glad that I'm almost last in this presentation, because really all the strands of information are really working towards the best quality of life for the girls. So hopefully this work that I will be able to present to you will bring in a lot of common interests that are in this room. And can I congratulate you, Bill, and the committee for organising such a beautiful and very, very collaborative and collegial conference. And we're honoured to be here. So we are from Perth. We are a team that is based in Perth, and Helen, as you all know, started the Australian Rett Syndrome database in 1993. So there are a few snapshots from our state, and we have beautiful beaches, as does most of Australia, inland areas that are very dry, just like most of mainland Australia. And also, for some reason, our swans are black. And here is a slightly blurry picture of our team. And even though we're one of the most isolated cities in the world, really we have Helen Leonard, who has led our team for over 20 years, and her style of communication is very collaborative. And so therefore, not only have we as a team built up we hope very strong relationships with families across Australia, but also families in other countries of the world, and also lots of other clinicians and researchers. So the most isolated city in the world, but we have certainly worked very hard so that we're not isolated in terms of Rett syndrome. So this is the database that has been built, and Helen showed this morning, and there's a nationwide recruitment. We encourage families across our country to register with the database, and we collect information from families and clinicians. And over time, we have collected additional information in the format of questionnaires, but also our video studies. And we've also had times when we have been collecting clinical information. We've been privileged to visit children's hospitals to collect information also that we can put into our analyses. And you can see on the right-hand slide of that a very long list of outcome measures that we've been able to look at. But if we look at it a little bit differently to that, we say here is the girl first and foremost, front and centre in our minds as we work. And here is the continuum of time. She is growing older. And with the database that is rich and long and deep, we can look back at factors that might be influencing how she is behaving or her health at the current time. And we can also look forward to outcomes later, to do with her health and her well-being, side effects to do with treatments, how acceptable and accessible treatments are, and also family well-being. But today's talk will mainly be about the well-being of the child. And if I stand back from that slide and squint, I can see three words. I can see three words: quality of life. So it's putting a lot of things into perspective with a sort of a squinty eye, and that has brought us to the notion that whilst we look at individual health outcomes or individual functional abilities, what we really want to start to do is to pull those things together, knit them into the fabric that is a quality of life. So here is the standard definition of quality of life, and it is a person's satisfaction of all sorts of things that are a part of their life, and all of us will understand what that means to us. It has multiple components. Some of those components are absolutely universal. It's our health, it's our mental well-being, our social well-being. And then there are other groups in our community, particularly those who have a disorder or a health problem, who would have additional areas of their life that would need to be addressed potentially to have a very good quality of life. And that might include aspects of, say, bodily pain. And these aspects are called domains. So if the word domain has crept into my slides, then I'm simply talking about an area of your life. And we would recognise universally that a favourable quality of life is what we're all about in providing day-to-day care and treatments. And it was probably in about the 1980s, in the drug trials of that era, when quality of life was brought into many of those studies. And because if a treatment reduced a physiological measure by some amount, it was also important that that treatment added up to a change. which is quality of life. So, as regards children, there is quality of life aspects that are different to grown-ups, and if we look at developing children, then we're interested in the children's self-esteem, how they're developing their autonomy as they grow older, and different aspects. And again, with children, there are very disorder-specific aspects to a child which do need to be addressed, in particular in relation to symptoms, but also access to services. And so if we comb the literature and look at what we have in regard to children's quality of life and with other disabilities, then we can get some information as to what might be important for Rett syndrome. But when we map a lot of those measures against what we know from mainly you as families, we do not have a match that would, for us, we would feel comfortable to use as a very powerful outcome measure for the clinical trials that will come our way. So we recognise that there are many challenges in daily life for girls with Rett syndrome. The girls need support to manage their daily needs, and there are the additional complexities of comorbidities that can make those affected quite unwell. So we, in combing the literature again, nobody has asked the question, what is a good quality of life for Rett syndrome? And that we have set ourselves as a task that we're in the middle of investigating at the moment, and we hope that that will have fruits for you who have given us this information. So today I would like to describe to you the results of an interview study where we have identified what we believe represent the domains of life for girls with Rett syndrome that relate to their quality of life. I will show you a couple of slides that we're working on to measure the quality of life of the girls, and then we can start to consider how we can apply this information to our day-to-day care and our day-to-day activities, because this indeed is giving us power to direct activities. So we have, to find this information, we have conducted a qualitative study, and we have a relatively new member of our team, Amy Epstein, who conducted the interviews in this study. Some of you will have met her over the course of the weekend. And we sampled 21 families. Some lived in rural areas, some lived in urban areas. We had a range of girls represented, some who could walk, some who couldn't, some who had very, very severe medical issues, and others who had very much stronger physical well-being. So the children were aged 17 to 18 years. And this gave us a very variable sample from which we could learn a lot. We then designed an interview schedule, and these are the questions. We asked what areas of your daughter's life were important for her happiness, and when things were going well, what was happening? When things were not going well, what was happening? And what were the activities that made her feel very good about herself? What challenged her? And we asked parents to tell us what is a good quality of life for their daughter. So this was how we collected our information. And the interviews were on the phone. Because the girls were not able to speak for themselves in words to us, we asked these probing questions. We asked the parents, how do you know this? How would this look to an observable, outside observer? And why do you think this is, so that we could get context? And what we're really keen to do as we understand quality of life is that it moves from being somebody's opinion or somebody's feeling about the girl's quality of life to what could be more solidly observed as her quality of life. So it's subtle, but we want to represent the girls. So we talked in detail to the parents with those probing questions, and they gave us excellent interviews. They really gave us excellent examples to demonstrate each of our questions. The analysis was qualitative. We used words as our data, and we coded the information into groups, which are called themes. And these are what I will now present to you. Some of the themes related to health and well-being, and for example, physical health. When the girls were well, they were not experiencing respiratory infections, their seizure activity was managed or in control, the girls were sleeping well and had adequate energy, and generally physical health was not in the way of extra activities that they would actually get benefit and satisfaction from. So here are two quotes, one illustrating how experiencing seizures and the medication of seizures was markedly influencing this girl's quality of life. And the bottom quote, which is illustrating how a girl who wasn't sleeping particularly well, and if she was very tired through the day, she wasn't able to do what she would normally get satisfaction from. So with regard to body pain and discomfort, this is sometimes related to physical ailments like respiratory tract infections. Often it related to gastrointestinal discomfort, particularly with constipation. The musculoskeletal system often came up. Girls who were unable to walk, who spent very long periods of time in the one position, would often demonstrate to their parents or caregivers that they felt better on being moved and having their position changed. And also environmental factors, and some girls demonstrated much more comfort. For example, the temperature was well controlled for their comfort and well-being. So comfortable needing position changes, she stays in the same spot, she would end up with pressure areas, and that would be uncomfortable for her. So behavioural and emotional well-being came up as a very strong theme, and here we might have seen behaviours that were happy and laughing and smiling in response to enjoyable activities. But on the other hand, there was also sometimes more teeth-grinding or shaking or sometimes self-injurious behaviours when the girls were unhappy or frustrated with particular events or situations. And these could sometimes very much get the better of the girls, as you can see illustrated in this quote. So even holding the elbow straight didn't necessarily stop the girl who wanted to bite her hands. Another set of themes related to daily activity, communication skills, as we spent a lot of time on Friday talking about. This was critical for the girls enjoying their life. Vocalisations, making use of their eye contact skills, using gestures and facial expressions to show what they meant about things, and of course access to technologies. And so here is quote, a really beautiful quote that talks about how the girl was really determined to get her message across to her mother, and really was able to keep persisting with her message so that she was able to communicate the satisfaction that she felt about a particular activity or event. Movement and mobility also came up as a theme, and this was for girls who could walk independently, but also for girls who needed assistance to walk. And it often, especially if they had could achieve something themselves, this was felt as very satisfying, or observed as being satisfying to girls. Enjoyment of moving, as in swinging or activities where they were enjoying their movement through space. And also a girl feeling in control of her movements. And this might also have been observed when sitting on the side of the bed during dressing activities for the girl who could not walk or stand. And so here is a couple of quotes. The girl who would not walk uphill, but if something motivated her, that's what she would do. And another girl who would walk up a ramp to get on a horse. So motor activities could be, demonstrating how something really was very exciting and pleasurable for those particular two children. We also heard from parents that their daughters expressed a lot of satisfaction from some of their daily routines. They liked the familiarity of their environment, the consistency of caregivers, and this related to sleep, bedtime when they were going to sleep, and often related to enjoying sitting in their place in the classroom or having their same teacher, knowing their favourite television programs, knowing their favourite music and DVDs to watch, contributed to the girls' comfort and satisfaction of their daily life. And this quote is an example of how the girl's routine was very important to her. She liked her bedroom, she liked her people caring for her, the familiar that was getting her ready for her sleep time. And that was perceived and observed by the parents as being very favourable to her quality of life. And this had not been reported in the literature prior to us identifying this in the study. And it would come as no surprise that other domains related to us in the community, not just us in the community as with families, but in the broader community outside the immediate home. So here, social connectedness was extraordinarily important for the girls. Activities at home, in particular with siblings, and we heard the voices of siblings who could speak to the communication bonds that they had, and really that was very much something that came out of our interviews with parents also. School friendships at school and classrooms, and also community activities like particular days going to the pool, particular activities when the girls went horse riding or did things like that. There are activities outside the home that become very, very important in the girls' lives. And so here is a quote that talks about a family's observations of their daughter when they took her camping. And there she was in the thick of it all. She had her sleeping bag in the tent with the other children and really feeling very included and together and demonstrating very high levels of satisfaction with that social connectedness, that social engagement. Another theme that came out of the interviews was the natural environment. And this also is newly identified and not talked about in the quality of life literature. And in animals, pets and companion dogs, being outside with plant life, with different weather systems, the elements, the sand, the mud, the water. I remember a girl going down the beach with a girl, and she would turn her face to the wind and really looked happy to have the wind blowing on her face and blowing over her face. Not all girls will have exactly that same sense of the environment that they would like. But there was a theme that was very strong that came out of the literature. So here is one example, feeling the wind in her hair, looking for bird life, looking for kangaroos and emus. This is a girl on a farm, and feeling good that she's out there in the countryside and enjoying that. And we have lots of aspects of our world that we really don't want to lose, and part of it is our natural environment. And I really felt that we have a political point to make, just maybe, that there's aspects, our parks, our gardens, our natural world really needs to be beautiful for all of us to enjoy. Variety of activities came out as another theme, and I'm sure you would not be surprised to realise that doing things with other children, doing things that are learning new skills, doing things that are in different environments, such as being on a bike or swimming or bike riding, our bodies are challenged. We get to feel new positions, we feel new sensations, we're learning new skills and connecting with other people around us in very, very meaningful ways. And this came out as also as a very, very strong theme. Other activities might have been more quiet and sedentary, computer activities and DVD, watching TV, but also going out to restaurants and going out to bowling. And the girls who are here this weekend, I think everyone has a treat by us being all here together. So here is a quote that talks about some of the activities that this mother's daughter could do, her swinging, her riding a horse and her swimming, and these gave opportunity for those around her to see this girl with a different light. So here she is with quite strong skills in the pool, and she was blowing people away with her ability and her skill. And what a nice framework that is put around that child so she can feel empowered and to feel that mastery for herself. And another theme that came up was the provision of very targeted services. So that's something that we need to, those who are providing services need to learn, but also it's part of how parents are interacting with those who are providing services for their daughter. For example, I'll give you an example, but here is an example of when school programs took a long time in this particular school to get started, and to be, the girl at the beginning of the year would be reassessed and people would get together and talk about what they were going to do and how they were going to plan the week and the day for this girl, and it would be nearly the end of term 1 before she had really got to the point where she was busy and active and engaged to the ability that she was able to do, so that she was then able to learn and build on her skills. So this came up as something that's very important for us as service providers to, or not done service provider, but the service providers to acknowledge is that now is the moment, and we really have to minimise delays in how we put systems and supports into place for those with any disability. So just a little bit more, the stability of daily routines domain was new to the literature. So here we are sort of leading the way in a little bit of information that might help us to understand more systematically how better to manage day-to-day life. And it really is seen to appear to reduce stress. And it asks the questions, might routines be very useful in a sort of a very encapsulated, targeted way to build up tolerance of new activities? Because there are some girls who do struggle with new interactions, new activities and new things that are outside their routine. So maybe there's a way we can understand that could be useful in helping with coping with differences. And secondly, as I said, the domain, the natural environment also came out very strongly. And we do have some literature in the general population where activity in the natural environment appears to be very good for our mental health and well-being. And indeed, in the design of new hospitals now, they work very, very hard at putting little capsules of the natural environment within that hospital setting to enhance recovery. And the psychologists in this area suggest that maybe these mechanisms are about enhancing our memory processes. Going outside and doing things outside seems to be very, very good for us, helping our attention and helping with a very positive effect on mood. So we would like to investigate this more fully in Rett syndrome over time, because this could be, for girls who do not have access to natural environments, this could be an important way of improving their quality of life. So we also saw that there were other unique elements that did not map across to the other literature, the behaviour problems when girls are anxious, or so anxious that they are self-injurious, comorbidities that can take their toll, particularly with regard to gastrointestinal issues. The pleasure of walking and the satisfaction at changing position haven't really been talked about in the literature, and the real communication pleasure in communicating choices. So really we have no other option but to work and use this information to develop a questionnaire that specifically addresses these issues in Rett syndrome and can make sense of those for when we're in the future measuring outcomes in clinical trials. We can know if the lives of the girls were better. So that is one of our tasks. I think I might have said exactly that in what I just said. So what we have done is we have used that information from what the parents told us, and we have constructed 59 items, and I'll show you a small sample of a couple of little bits of that. And our process this far is that we have talked about this with our Australian communities, our consumer reference group, but we will be more formally validating that over the course of the early part of next year, so that we're very excited to see how it really looks. So these are the sorts of items that we would be able to consider when rating the girl's quality of life. Did she seek out physical activity? Did she have physical affection? Did she have opportunities to interact with other children? Did she enjoy opportunities to greet people, being included, expressing happiness when people are paying attention to her, sharing the social experiences of meal times, and that has come up previously when siblings were talking about their time with their sister. And for example, in the nature and the outdoors, opportunities to watch and listen to nature, to feel natural elements, eagerness to explore the outdoors, companionship with pets. We can take those aspects of life into account and see what that really looks like. In a variety of activities, how often has the child chosen a preferred activity, had an interest in starting an activity, being able to use her technology comfortably, participated in different activities and so on. And for example, for communication, how often has she been able to make her own choices, expressed her feelings, expressed her wants and needs, expressed happiness when other people have understood her, and enjoyed when other people were communicating at high level. So this is really a distillation of all the things that the parents talk to us in great detail, and we really pay tribute to parents for sharing their observations of their daughters to bring this into something that is tangible and might be able to make sense for us as a tool for advocacy. So parents also told us what their daughter needs. They spoke about her personal self. She needs time. She needs choices and decision making. Let her have her cheeky fun. You would all know this as parents. Speak to her at eye level. Find what motivates her. Celebrate what she can do. So really, this is any child. And we have the common goal of raising all of our children and recognising that those fun things are really quite universal. But here we need also to make sure that she is comfortable, she's pain-free, she's getting good quality sleep. If something is upsetting her, it's appropriate, it's finding that reason and acting upon it. The right medical care and equipment at exactly the right time. And for Rett syndrome, the rhythm of movement and also the rhythm of walking also came out as a particular health factor. The world out there, this is where communication comes in so importantly, so that there's people with whom she has developed relationships, social interactions, a real sense of team around the child, and lots of outings where the children were often observed to really enjoy getting their feet muddy, sitting in the sand and loving the waves. So we had some lovely stories around nature, as I said. And awareness of Rett syndrome was so important so that we could reduce society's sometimes observed judgment of those who are different. And really that is a task for all of us, and it's a task that we as researchers take very closely to our hearts, and all of us do in our daily lives. And finally, when when dads, our two dads, were talking about what their daughter needs, they also said that she needs a healthy family. And this is really a segue to our latest session, which is talking about family. And really families needed resources. What do I do if this is happening? What do I do if, is what mums often said. Prioritising relationships over stuff and finding that balance within family life, and then having support for themselves, so they were then able to support their daughters. And I think a healthy child is the health of the family is critical across the board in our society. So we are extraordinarily excited that we're shining the spotlight on quality of life and Rett syndrome. And here we're putting together lots of different strands of the girl's health and well-being, her abilities and her social and communication experiences to pull that together into something that is a little bit more concrete, that we can put our hands, it's a little bit more tangible. And we imagine that by developing a measure, which, as I say, is in its draft, it's a reasonable draft at the moment, then this will have purposes. This will have purposes in clinical care planning. What do I do? And if I do make this intervention, have I managed to reduce those adverse impacts on this girl's daily life? These are observable characteristics that we could people outside the immediate family would be able to observe. Could we develop behavioural interventions that reduce the duration of challenging behaviours, and for those girls really build their opportunities to experience success? That's important for all of us. And then there might be other interventions about community participation, social skills and friendships, and something like this tool would be very valuable for us being able to say this is a good intervention that could be valuable to the community. We also have the potential that it could be used in clinical trials. The clinical trials to date are very exciting for Rett syndrome, but one of the important components of any clinical trial, the intervention has to be good, the measures have to be good as well. And we as a whole community, many of you have provided us with video over the last 10 or 11 years. And from all of those observations that we have been able to code, we have developed a gross motor scale. And I know this gross motor scale is now being built into the currently planned clinical trial. So that is an extraordinary contribution to us knowing whether new medications are actually working. We have to have a good treatment. We also need to have very strong and robust measures to know, is that change meaningful? So that is a contribution for our Australian Rett syndrome community into the living life of clinical trials of the present. So there is potential that this will also be very valuable for the bigger picture interventions that will have very substantial clinical trials behind them. And lastly, if we as a community understand more systematically what is valuable for the girls and the women, their quality of life, then we will be stronger in terms of advocacy. And certainly this suite of information, I kind of knew it, but I really know it now. And when I'm talking to families or talking to anyone about Rett syndrome and quality of life, I can talk more powerfully because these are the observations of the families. These are observable to people outside the immediate family. And here we have a systematic picture, and which is very, very powerful for advocacy. And finally, to acknowledge the families who contribute so robustly to all of our research, our consumer reference group who've been sticking with us since 2005 and really have provided important information to a lot of our studies, but this one also. And we, along the road of the Rett syndrome database, have previously had NIH funding from the US. We have had NHMRC funding from Australia, and we also had some local funding from WA, who I'd like to acknowledge for our specific quality of life work, and Amy, who conducted beautiful interviews, and some of you will know exactly who Amy is. Thank you.